You're watching LMCC.
Then one night he invited me to his house in the Lake Minnetonka area. At the time, I was so ignorant about Minnesota that when I first saw all the ice fishing houses on the lake, I thought, geez, there are a lot of squatters here and so much open land. I moved to Minnesota from New Jersey in 1995 and started my own business, Farrar Writing and Editing, in 1999. I've always been fascinated by memoirs, and I reached the point where I realized I had this really interesting story to tell, and I could help a lot of people. The real clincher for the timing, though, was that in December of 2017, the New York Times came out with an article about how the U.S. Defense Department spent $22 million on what it called the Advanced Aerospace Identification Threat Program. It made me want to write my book because my family and I have seen UFOs on numerous occasions. I grew up in Grover's Mill, New Jersey, which was ground zero for an infamous radio broadcast in 1938 that sent thousands of Americans into a terrified frenzy thinking that Martians had landed in our podunk town. Ironically, something about growing up in Grover's Mill set the stage for my life being filled with some very real paranormal experiences. I felt that telling my story could accomplish two things. I could help other people who needed vindication that what they had seen and experienced really did happen, and I could add fuel to the pressing need for disclosure, both in this country and abroad. Well, after moving to Minnesota, I completely transformed my life from growing up in an alcoholic home and being in an abusive relationship to meeting the love of my life in Minnesota and having a really wonderful daughter who, by the way, did the cover art for my book. I thought my story could inspire people who are unhappy with their lives, that if I could totally transform mine, they could too. The other topic that I cover in my book is that there was a unifying thread throughout my life, that paranormal phenomena had always been present, and I wanted to present the phenomena in the context of my story because I think something about growing up with trauma makes people more sensitive to paranormal phenomena. From the age of 14 on, I had kept a journal and realized I loved writing about what I was experiencing and observing in the world around me. Before I started writing my memoir, the first thing I did was pore over all the old diaries I'd kept. I learned so much about myself and my life in that process that I almost certainly would have forgotten had I not kept those diaries. But after I moved to Minnesota and Paul and I had Emma, we started seeing craft all the time. One time we were driving home late one night from a movie in Waconia when we saw lights over the lake only about a mile from our home. Just as we started figuring out what it could be and feeling a little afraid, the lights took a steep dive into the water at this incredible rate of speed. We all just sat there with our mouths hanging open. I did have a personal experience with ETs that was really a game changer for me. I don't want to give away everything in my book though, so you'll have to read the book to find out about that one. I've learned that our physical reality isn't all that exists, that when we die, we move on to another place. I learned this after having an out-of-body experience when I was 17 years old, and I had that experience where I floated above my body and went down a dark tunnel toward a bright light. But as I got closer to that light, I was told that it wasn't my time and I still had work to do. So that experience seemed to have opened a door to the other side for me, and it seemed like I was much more perceptive after that. Another thing I learned is that you should always be your authentic self. Don't change who you are to make other people comfortable. Learn as much as you can about yourself and be honest with yourself and others about who you really are, because that is the only real path to happiness.